do it, like I said, do it live.
All right. Well, we are live with recordings.
We're live. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is DGG Presents Random Encounters, name voted on by the Twitterverse from a few options, and we like it. Simple as that.
Yep.
This is our second installment where we just talk all things TTRPGs. If we have time and it fits into the conversation well, we'll take like some questions where we can from the chat. Joining us again as last time, Brian, known as Jark the Bard on Twitter. You want to give a quick plug real quick before we dive in?
Yeah, sure. So I write over at bjarkthebard.com where I provide tips mainly on DMing. My goal is to share what I have learned with my numerous years of gaming, some of it easy lessons, a lot of it not so easy lessons,
Fair.
help you improve.
Oh, there's some things you can only learn by doing, but some things you can get around by listening to people who have done it a lot.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or you
yeah.
can, you can soften the blow a little bit.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, looking back, there's a ton of stuff that I've just learned the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So first thing, we're gonna dive right in with the latest news in the D&D and I guess probably TTRPG universe is we don't have the PDF and everything yet as of the time this broadcast is happening if you're watching the VOD. But we did get a video with Todd Kanarick and Jeremy Crawford talking about the next set of 1D&D playtest rules. Now, I'm not going to lie, when I saw the title before I saw the video and it said expert classes, I was like, "Ooh, wait, are we jumping back in time here? Are we bringing back prestige classes or something?" But that's not what it is, kind of thankfully, because I'm not sure that would fit and be as backwards compatible as they were saying that everything is going to be. So what it is they have class groupings in this next set of things coming out. So there's 4 different classes. There's experts, warriors or fighters. I can't remember which one is off the top of my head. Mages and priests.
Yep.
So we know from the video, experts has 4 classes. It includes the bard, the rogue, the ranger, and the artificer.
That's cool. I wonder if they're going to remove resources from the artificer and the ranger.
Don't know. We'll see when PDF comes out. They didn't talk a lot about that, but one of the things they did talk about is that group of 4 is the expert group. And every class in the expert group is going to have expertise as a class skill.
Fair.
So bards and rogues already have it,
Yeah.
so nothing new for them. Hopefully rogues still get the 2 that they gained, but we'll see. But the ranger and the artificer will also get expertise in at least 1 skill.
I'm pretty hopeful that this means that Ranger's going to get a little bit more of the love that it needs that it didn't necessarily get in 5e.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. So that's the hope. The other thing is they in this go round they're not doing the nat 20 nat 1 auto fail auto success.
That's a shame.
Well, they're just trying things like this playtest material that's coming out is not affected by the first set of playtest material at all. Those surveys are still open, so this is just the next step, and they're going to try a lot of things, which I am 100% behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have a lot of time, so do the spaghetti method.
Yes.
you
Might
got
as
the
well.
time. There was over 40,000 people that filled out the survey so far, which, wow.
That's fantastic. That's exactly what we need. I think that was one of the best things about D&D Next moving into 5e is that they opened it to the community and they were like, "Hey, listen, this is where we're going. Let's get your thoughts." And the fact that they're doing this again, really, I think that's going to be very beneficial to them again. Is just kind of getting a feel for what everybody really wants.
Yeah. Well, that and with enough eyes, any bug is shallow. Speaking from the old open source creed,
The other major thing, well, not the other major thing, but the major thing with this playtest material when it does come out is Jeremy Crawford stressed that, each set of material that comes out supersedes the other. So like there's differences in this one. So this material is meant to be play tested with how this is presented.
Yep.
So like I already said, the nat 1, nat 20 auto fail, not in this one. And then rolling a 20 where you get inspiration in the first set, not in this one. This one, it's if you roll a nat 1, you get inspiration.
That's cool. So like learning from your mistakes kind of thing.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I dig that a lot more than nat 20. And nat 20 is cool enough on its own. But like if you roll a nat 1, like sometimes it's just a downward spiral.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
Yeah.
rolling that nat 1, gaining inspiration, then if next time you're like, if you roll another nat 1, like happens, inspiration, nope.
Well, yeah, and I can see it from kind of like the roll for shoes perspective, where you get additional experience every time you fail instead of succeed.
Yeah.
That's another way to
it's
look at it too.
yeah, it's cool. I like that it's going to kind of soften the blow of those super failures that you get, where it's like you roll a 1 and it's just like, well, that's not happening.
This is going to be a
Yeah.
story.
What I really like about both of the playtest materials with the inspiration stuff is they're putting ways to give inspiration in the actual mechanics and rules.
Yes.
It's no longer arbitrary. I mean, it can still be arbitrary. You can still do what you want, obviously, but they're giving those people who are unsure how much they should give and win, they're giving them a way to know they're going to get it. And so it's going to encourage people to use it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say is it's something that I forget first and foremost out of every game.
Oh, totally.
I can count on maybe one hand how many times I've given out inspiration because I just forget about it. I usually just dump on extra experience or something.
I'm going to jump to a question. DM Stasia in the chat, who joined us last 2 weeks, actually, running games for us. My guess is with the rolling the nat 1 and gaining inspiration for that, you can't use it on that roll, would be my assumption.
Yeah.
We'll see when PDF comes out, but that just makes more sense to me because it's not like, oh, nat 1, oh, you get inspiration, cancel that nat 1.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to go that route. It's going to be for the future down the line.
Well, that's also true. Wizards of the Coast has done much stranger things. The way I'm seeing it is maybe it's something like as kind of a Hail Mary where, like, let's say you nat 1 and you're falling on that deck save, you might have an inspiration die to try to roll against it so you don't get like a chain of bad luck rolling. However, with my rolls when I'm a player, it would all end up being 1s anyways. So
yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
So the Halfling Lucky Feat part of that question also reminded me they're getting rid of the ability score increase or feat option too. Now it's just feats. But if you still like that ability score increase, there's a feat ability score increase. So it's still there, but everything is feats now. There is no feat or, it's you choose a feat. And if you want the ability score increase, that's a feat you can now choose.
It kind of feels like they're repackaging things because something I always forget is that feats are optional.
Yeah.
Yep.
In 5e. I mean, I've never played at a table that's like, we're not using the option to play with feats, but it is something you can do. So
that would be
I'm guessing
very, very different game.
I mean, would that be a defeated game?
I kind of want to run like a Tomb of Annihilation without feats and see how that plays.
Ouch.
Like make it
no
a part of
feats
the
and a
curse.
stack of character sheets.
Yeah, just
yeah, they did not mention if they were going to cap how many times you could take it. We'll have to see when the PDF comes out in the rules, but I don't think they will because they'll probably put a cap on stats again, just like they did currently. So you'll have a number you can't surpass even with defeat. But
yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah, and I imagine they're probably going to do like 1 every 4 levels and maybe a couple of class mechanics that have feats, and that's like it.
Yeah. Another thing in this current one, everybody's like class ability you got at level 20. They're gonna get it at level 18 instead now.
That makes sense because the majority of end game campaigns you end at level 20. You don't start at level 20.
Yeah. So then at level 20, they're going to have a list of epic boons, and you get an epic boon at level 20.
That's a good
I
way
think
to
that's
go.
cool.
I agree with
Yeah.
that.
So the other thing they're doing with this release, from what they talked about, I think this PDF is going to be huge. Just saying, because it's including it's including all spells all the spells first through 9th level. Like all of them, they said, are going to be in this one.
Yeah.
And then the other thing they're doing is they're going to have suggested spell lists for all of the casters. Like, you don't have to take that, but I like the way Jeremy Crawford put it. Basically, he said, if you're a new player, there's just too many choices, or you're an experienced player and you're just like, I just don't want to decide, there'll be a suggested spell list you can take. So these
I
are the
like
suggested
that.
prepared spells. And that just like leans into the accessibility thing they're trying to get
Oh,
for
yeah.
new players, get people into it.
Mhm.
Like, if you're a new player playing a caster and you see that, like,
Mountain.
you have, like, especially
Yeah.
the prepared spell casters where you have access to all of these. Now pick 5.
I actually ran into that last night doing a play test where we it was 5 players, all did level 16 characters for some material that I'm involved in that will be coming out in October. Um but one of my players, relatively new to the game, never really played that tier before, and we were actually talking this morning, and he had mentioned that he really struggled to build the character just because he was just flooded with options. Because he's like, I'm looking through these and like I don't know what to pick and
Well,
I
yeah.
like that.
I mean, really, what they should have done with their quick build thing has been like, hey, you want to play a healer for your cleric? These are the spells that are best for that. Or,
Yeah,
hey, you want a wizard that's more utility instead of just damage? These are the really good spells for that, and why? Like, just 2 paragraphs. Like, that's all you really need to just get
Tosh,
moving.
Tasha's touched on that a little bit with the fighter, where
Yeah.
they were like, here's some fighter builds that you can use that
Mhm.
like they take specific things and you can do these things and this is the kind of setup for it. And I was like, I really like that. But I agree. I think having that for all of the classes, especially now where they're kind of leading into, you kind of build your own thing from a set of
Mhm.
features. I think having examples is really going to up the accessibility.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Kind of
The
like how Shadowrun did their templates, where they're like, you can make whatever you
Yes.
want, but here's a handful of generic templates in the beginning that you can literally just copy and paste and change like 3 things and be done.
Because, like,
Yeah.
also, if you need to like just quick start something, boom, you're ready to go.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Rather
as
than,
we've
okay, yeah,
as we've learned going down this rabbit hole, indie games or any games that exist, if you don't have a quick start guide, you're gonna fall flat on your face.
accessibility is key in making the barrier to entry to starting your game. The lower you can make that, the more people are going to try
Oh,
it and get into it.
totally, totally. I was talking with somebody online the other day about how more games really need to have some sort of introductory adventure
Hmm.
Hmm.
for players, and then even on the GMing side,
Yeah.
like something that just really, really easily brings you into the game. Doesn't necessarily have to be what you play long term, but something that gets you the idea to understand the rules, understand how
Hmm.
things work, and just get a general feel for it. I think
Yeah.
Call of Cthulhu most recently has like their first adventure that comes with the book is like it feels like a choose your own adventure thing, but it slowly eases you into the mechanics that will be at play, and I like that.
Mm. And the thing is, it doesn't even have to be a full like multi-session adventure. It could be a one-session adventure. It could be, it just a couple like encounters or something that take,
Hmm.
like an hour or like less than 2 hours, less than an hour to get through. But
Hmm.
just some scenario that gets you playing so everybody gets involved and figures out the rules on that is just it's going to be so easy for people to try it. It's like, oh, I don't have like from a GM perspective, okay, I don't have to prep anything for this first session necessarily. We can just go over the rules, make characters, or copy paste from the templates and play and see if we like how it goes. And that's like for me, I'd be way more likely to try a game where like as either as playing or GMing it that had something like that for me prepared, So because it's less work for me to have to
Well,
prepare an adventure.
yeah. Or do something similar to like Hold Fast, where they had each segment was broken down into time frames. So you knew pretty much what it was going to take to do each segment of the game. So
Mhm.
you could kind of map out what your sessions are going to look like. Doing that for a quick start adventure would be ideal.
Shout out to Luck Legends. We did it's on our YouTube. We did a two-part of Hold Fast Station,
Hmm.
and his game is set up that way. There's like as you read through it, it says 30 minutes for this to do this stuff in this section, and it kind of gives you an idea about how long it's going to take to get through. And obviously, it can be shorter or longer, but you've got a guide to tell you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just like running through the game, it was just he kind of just he said, "I'm just gonna read what I've got here just to show how easy it is to go through it," and that's what he did.
Yep.
You can watch
I
that on
like
our
that.
YouTube and check it out on our YouTube if you want to, because that one is on the YouTube, right, Don? I'm not
Yep.
sending them on a wild
No.
goose chase.
All of our games that we've streamed are on our YouTube except for
Okay,
the very first one.
which went
Yeah, the Witterson's
on.
keepsake one. It just vanished into the ether on us. But ever since then, they've been recorded and ported over to YouTube.
Cool, but yeah, so jumping back into track now. Another thing they're doing with spells from one D&D is any caster who has a ritual spell on their list can ritually cast it. So
Perfect.
you don't have to take a bonus feat or anything for it. You just or everyone that does magic can ritual cast spells.
Yeah, which I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. The only thing I hope that they don't do is I still hope that the wizards get that little extra bonus where they don't have to, you know, prepare the ritual spells,
Yeah.
because that was like a thing about wizards that was their
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
And it also makes sense because you've got everything prepared in a book.
Yeah, you got your book in front of you.
Yeah.
I also want them to do something different for the scroll making mechanic because honestly, if you're a wizard and you do nothing else with your downtime and you just throw money at it, you could get a pretty heavy arsenal of spells that you don't have to pay attention to throughout
Mhm.
the rest of the game. So like, especially if you even if you just go by like standard money gain through the levels, by level 5 you have an arsenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
Yeah.
didn't play a wizard doing that, but I played an artificer doing that. And like literally anytime I had downtime, I told the DM, I was like, yeah, no, he's just gonna stay home, be a reclusive hermit, and just hyper focus on making scrolls. Um and it like you said, it would be funny because he would go into adventures and it would just be like, well, I've got these spells loaded out, but then I have, three of healing word. I have this and I have this. I'm like, dude, we can hand these out to the other casters in the party and like, don't worry, we got this.
That's true. So that actually brings me on another thing is like I wonder if they're going to change the limitations on who can use the spell scrolls.
I kind of hope so. It would make the classes more special, in my opinion,
Mhm.
to kind of specialize those where, divine casters can use divine scrolls or whatever they want to call them. Druids can use their rolled up bark or whatever it is, and wizards have their scrolls. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? It just makes them seem more special when you specialize them.
Well, because like
Yeah.
one of the things with the current 5e is if it's not on your spell list, you can't use it.
Yeah, that's true.
And I would kind of like to see that go away,
Yeah.
honestly.
For me, it was actually a topic of discussion when we started our most recent campaign because I have one player that just he's like, I don't like the rule. He's like you said, he's like, I think that like if you use magic, you should be able to use magic, and the idea of a spell is somebody put the resources into it already. You just
That's
need to
fair.
have
Mhm.
that spark to set it off. But
Mhm.
the compromise that we came to was um, if it's a spell or a spell on your spell list, you can use the scroll. If it is not on your spell list or you like it's a higher level, it's going to be I believe we set a spell casting modifier check
Yeah, that's
based on
Okay.
the spell level. to use it.
Kind of like
Yeah.
Um,
counterspell, but in reverse.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Or because I haven't done it this campaign, but in the past I've had a fun little bit of like my party will be doing something, and I will give them a spell scroll that is too high for any of them to cast.
Hmm.
So, and it'll be a useful item. It'll be a MacGuffin that if they use it will really help them out. But it's always going to be a gamble if they try to use it. Like like they're dealing with a corrupted plants in the forest and they come across a blight scroll. It's like, well, none of us can cast blight. We'll have a chance to do so. So
Yeah.
you kind of get there and you're like, do we want to take the gamble to cast this, or do we want to just pocket this and deal with it later? Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think I think with the way they're doing it with the grouping of the magic, it would be really cool if it's like,
Mm.
arcane can do arcane scrolls, primal can do primal scrolls,
Hmm.
divine can do divine, and then maybe there's some sort of hindrance, some sort of you kind of have to translate your magic, so like an arcane user, like they're pulling from the weave, um, of magic, and it's like, well, I have to figure out how to translate this into the divine magic that's being used, and there's some sort of check involved.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, like I have no issues with like a check for something that's higher level or something that's not on your spell list. But a wizard not being able to use a spell scroll of a spell that's not on their list never made sense to me.
Well,
Because that's kind of their thing.
Yeah, like there's like the warlock specific and some sorcerer spells that are not on the wizard list. And so if a wizard got a scroll for one of those, they wouldn't be able to use it
that's true.
with the current 5e rules. I'm like, that makes zero sense to me of everything else. Wizards of any class should be able to.
Yeah, I think probably their concern were some game balancing issues.
I mean,
Yeah.
could be, but just never made sense. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, cure wounds, wizard with cure wounds. um, so the last thing that I'm going to specifically mention is a little more speculation here. So we've got the 4 different groups, and we've
Hmm.
got 13 classes because they're taking all the 12 from Player's Handbook plus the Artificer, and they're all going to be there.
Hmm.
So my thought is the warrior group: fighters, barbarians, monks.
Yep.
I think that seems pretty straightforward. I saw some discourse about monks maybe being in the priest group, and I could kind of see that, but I think the warrior group just makes more sense overall.
Either that or
Because
it'll be fighters, barbarians, monks, and paladins.
see, I don't think they're doing that because I mean they could, but my thought process is there's 13 classes, 4 of
Hmm.
them are in your expert. That leaves 9 classes and 3 groups,
Hmm.
3 3 3 3 3 3.
Yeah, it's possible.
So I'm thinking the priest group is going to be clerics, paladins, and druids. And then, of
Yeah.
course, that leaves wizards, sorcerers, and warlocks for the mage group.
Yep.
That just makes the most sense to me. It might be different, but that's just kind of
Yeah. Yeah, in the warrior group, I don't see anything that has a class feature that would be a spell slot being involved, at least initially.
yeah.
Yeah. And
There is
I oh, you go ahead.
no. Go ahead. I'm just gonna move on to something else a
Okay.
little bit. So
I
fire
would
away.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think by doing that, by decided like what you're saying, where if paladin goes into warrior and cleric goes into priest, we might get a little bit more of a definite difference between the two. Because I know a lot of people I have talked to talk about how cleric just kind of seems like it can do everything, with
It
how it's set
really
up. Like,
kind of can.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's the last time I played cleric. I was a forge cleric, and I was like, I'm a frontline fighter that can
Mhm.
heal and put out offensive magic while I'm wielding my warhammer, and it's
With your
it's a
heavy
lot of fun on
armor.
the and it's a lot of fun on the player side. But I know I've talked a little bit where I've said like I think it would be interesting if at some point as a cleric you have to decide, am I going to be the kind of cleric that is the frontline fighter, or am I going to be the kind of cleric that's more of a caster? And then you like it's a path you go down and by taking those options, necessarily not as good as those other options, um, which would be interesting. And I know when they started early on, just with how the orders were set up, that was kind of what was happening. Where like some of them would get the proficiencies, while others would get better magic. But I feel like with the amount of orders that we have now, you can kind of do just about anything. I had a Twilight cleric
Mm-hmm.
in a recent one shot, and like the player jumped in, like it was literally last second for the final battle. Was like, "Hey, I can make it. Can I make a character?" I said, "Yeah, go nuts, level 3, whatever you want to do." It was like, "Oh, the Twilight cleric," and I'm like, "Why does that name sound familiar?" And then I remember, like after the fact, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right." Anytime I played in a playtest, everybody's like, "Well, if you're making a cleric, don't make Twilight cleric," and I understand why now. Drop that ability where he's like, "You all get temporary HP,
No, see
and it's always up."
what I need to do is I need to run a D&D game that is nothing but clerics and just throw everything at them.
That would be fun.
Oops, all clerics.
Yep.
Yeah. We're it's kind of postponed, and I were both involved in a Oops All Warlocks
Yep.
one that was going to get run. So we're hoping that kind of comes up again because I was having a lot of fun with the character I made.
I like that. I like that a lot. I did an
Yeah.
Oops All Bards one where
Mhm.
it was 3 of us, and we all tried to make distinctly different bards, and it was just the shenanigans that we got up to. Because it was like I was, I was a glamour bard, so that was a lot of fun. Then we had a lore bard, and then we had a valor bard that was a dwarf whose instrument of choice was a tuba,
That's amazing.
and he just, oh, it was brutal, especially for the fact that first combat encounter we got ran in, and the player mixed up shatter and thunderwave, so ran into the middle of the enemies. It was like, I cast shatter on myself. And the DM was like, "Are you
Ooh.
sure?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "That damages you too." And he's like, "Oh, well, I did it. We're playing through." And halfway through that first adventure, we're dragging his body back to town because we're like, he's out. We don't know what to do.
Oh,
Yeah,
It was
that
just have
is
beautiful
cool.
though.
Mhm. It would just be great to have like a group of like 4 or 5 clerics that were all like at this big like religious convention or debate and everything went to crap and now they all have to try to figure out how to work together as like an apocalyptic event is occurring.
What you could have it is that they've got a big, it's like a cleric convention, but they didn't invite the villainous origins cleric group,
Yeah.
and they're like, we're angry because we didn't get invited, so we're wrecking your party.
Yeah, and like, a gate to Thurisdan shows up and like it'd be
Oh,
great.
I think
Cleric
Oh,
con.
Cleric Con, yeah.
cleric.
We'll call it
I, I,
Faith
I, th-
Con.
I think we've got a. I think we have something we can work on here, Don. I'm sensing a
Yeah,
casting call going out for an Oops All Clerics.
that'd be fun.
Oh,
Just
okay.
make it like a quick 5 session adventure. All the clerks at like level 10, so I'm not worried about just one shotting them out the gates.
Oh man, yeah.
That'd be fun.
So I hope this Warlock one goes off because it was going to be a lot of fun. They let me use the marionette race that mostly Don created, and I helped do a little editing on. So I created a companion doll, Celestial Warlock, because the premise of the adventure is the warlocks are trying to save magic. I don't know much more
Hmm.
outside that. So this celestial didn't think any mortals could actually succeed, so they infused this companion doll with their power.
Huh, that's awesome.
So yeah, I really hope I get to play that one. But moving on again a little bit now.
Mhm.
The last thing about one D&D that I'll mention, which is in the video too, before we jump to something else, is Feats and some I think abilities and things will be class group specific. So like this feat can only be taken by someone that's from the expert group.
Again,
So
I kind of like that because it adds more of a special feeling to the class you choose.
mhm,
Because if everybody can do everything, what's the point of choosing a
yeah.
class?
Well, I like that too, and it might include multiple groups, but also this
Yeah.
grouping is an accessibility thing as well because you know a new player comes in, they're like, well, like what
Fair.
helps? Like a lot of them really care. I've noticed about a balanced party. Now,
It's true.
personally, me, whatever, but
Mhm.
that's something they care about and they think about that. So now there's these four groups. There's a warrior group. Okay, we need one of those. There's a priest group. We need one of those. There's a mage group. We need one of those. There's an expert group. We need one of those. So it's like, okay, I want to play something that does this. They can pick from that group and it narrows down their choices immediately.
Yeah.
Every day we get slightly closer back to the 4E classification system.
That was
Yep.
one thing I saw. That was one thing I saw too. And I think that I'm hoping with some of this, they're going to take the good parts of 4E and put them into
Just
here. So we're getting it
I
just
just I just the classification was just so good. I was doing some monster creation the other day and I was just like, I really wish 5e had just a classification system where it's like,
hmm
well, this monster, like I'm making an ambushing monster, so
So
dex is always going to be highest, that kind of stuff.
really, I mean, fourth edition isn't. I know I'm probably going to catch flack for this, but it's not a bad system.
content
The
warning.
No,
Fourth
no, it's
edition
not.
praise coming.
the only problem I have with fourth edition was that they made the system so character centric that items are effectively useless.
Yeah.
That's like money and items were like they're kind of like what do you call those cosmetic things? Like
Hmm.
they added something, but they didn't add enough to really matter compared to like your class abilities, which was
Mm,
cool. But it kind of if you're dealing with a group of tactical players that are used to like third edition D&D where the point of the adventure was to get loot and gear and get more badass, you lose that group completely. If you're focused on a story where items and treasure and stuff is just part of the setting itself and you're more focused on the story, fourth edition is great. But that's my thought on it.
all right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna push us on to our last topic because we're gonna cut it off like right at 8:30 kind of tonight. We got something going on. So um one, this is a good topic. Two, I know Brian has blogged about it too. So we're gonna talk about the only two things that are surer than death and taxes. So you've probably heard, the only two things in life are death and taxes. Well, the only two things that beat death and taxes are scheduling conflicts
Right, George?
and your players surprising you as the GM. So we'll start with the second one because we can get that quick. It's gonna be funny. But one thing you can always count on as a GM, your players will surprise you. You can
Absolutely.
plan all this stuff that you can try and think of every possible route they'll take. They'll surprise you somehow and do something completely different or something you never thought of. It will always happen.
Yep.
So one of the biggest notes that Don and I think we've given in our tips podcasts, and I'm more than willing to bet it's in Brian's blog too, is don't try and plan everything.
Nope.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's one of those things that I know early on when you start GMing, there's this kind of need to like, I need to write out everything and be ready for every distinct possibility. And I find that akin to more trying to write a script to run your evenings, and you're not really running a script. You
Hmm.
kind of want to have just a set of information. And it's obviously easier said than done.
Hmm.
I know
hmm
I probably read this information as a, newbie GM trying to learn things, and it just one ear and out the other. It was like, no, 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 no. I need to understand everything in this town.
hmm
What if they don't go to the blacksmith? What if they decide, oh, let's just wander around town? I need to know everything. But it's one of those things where like less memorization and more like just kind of having an idea of the area It works much better, and that takes a lot of practice.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely does.
So
Yeah.
one of the things that I do is, have a list of names or shops or quick descriptions that you can just refer to. If you're bad at improv and improv terrifies you, which is fine,
Yep.
have lists you can pull from. So if they wander around town, what other shops do we see? You have a list. Oh, there's a bookstore, a flower shop, a you know speakeasy.
Mm-hmm.
You just have a
Mhm.
list you pull from, and then you don't need to worry about knowing everything in that town, and you don't have to tell them every single thing that exists in that
Yeah.
town, because I
Yep.
doubt they're going to spend an entire day walking around a town to find out every single shop that's there.
Also, I would add in that, and I just lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh, yes. Yeah, precisely. No, what I was gonna say is for those GMs slash DMs out there that are concerned about memorizing everything, I want to remind you one small detail that every new GM always overlooks, and this will save you so many hours of anxiety. The players can't see what you're thinking about. That if you're in the middle of planning, trust me, just listen to that again. The players cannot see what you're thinking about for all of your scenes and your encounters. So if they come up with an idea or a solution you have no idea about, just take whatever setting that encounter happened, delete it, and put that encounter in front of them. You'll be fine. I promise. It's okay.
Like another thing Don and I referred to a lot in our podcast is everything is content.
Yep.
So if you do plan something and they don't use it, you can copy paste it somewhere else and use it again.
Oh, yeah.
Anything that
I
you've planned and created, do not get rid of. You can use it again. You can reskin a monster, reskin a boss, reskin an encounter, move an encounter from a forest to a cave. That can be done, and it's going to save you so much time and energy.
Yeah. They don't see
I
what
have
you
this
see.
I have a section in my notebook for just things that I've created, like, oh, like, there's a quest board with 4 quests on it. Which ones do you want? Oh, well, we just want this one. You sure you don't want to take these other 2? Like, that one looks right. No, no, we just want this one. Oh, okay. And then I just sit there and I'm like, okay, move you into the rainy day pile.
Yep.
Definitely come back to you later.
Yep.
I, I
Exactly.
I also like to comment in the chat. When in doubt, put a door in front of the party, and then while they're trying to figure out what to do with this door, you have like 10 to 30 minutes to figure out what you're doing next.
And one thing I've done, and this sounds stupid, but it works almost every time. It's called "Ooh, look shiny." Like if they're traveling on on a road or something, you have it to where like there's this shiny stone or something inset into a boulder, and they will spend a ridiculous amount of time trying to get at it, and maybe have like 10 gold or something hidden under it. But like seriously, just give them something that catches their eye and drags them off course for about 5 minutes. You'll be good. You'll have plenty of time to
Yeah,
write some
that's
notes.
I think it's the DMG that has the weird locales table
Mm-hmm.
where it's like as you're traveling, you can just roll on this. And I remember one of my first times DMing in 5e, I was like, they were traveling up the trade road to get to like their first big city. And I got like, oh, there's a boat and there's no bodies of water anywhere nearby.
Heck
Put the
yeah.
boat there. And like you said, it literally soaked up like half an hour. They're like,
Why is
well,
the boat?
I wanna go check the boat, like, what does the boat look like? And, like, I'm sitting there, and one of my skills as a DM is improving, like, I love to come
Mm-hmm.
up with stuff on the spot, so, like, that, like, as they're doing stuff, I'm just kind of bouncing off them, like, giving them bits of information, and, like, I don't think anything came of the boat, they just checked out the boat, they were like, "Huh, there's a boat here, there shouldn't be a boat here. This is very odd, we're going to leave," but, like you said, it soaked up, like, 30 minutes of time because they're
Mm-hmm.
just fascinated by the fact that there's a boat.
Or to quote a famous DM out there, it's a chair.
It's just a chair.
Uh,
Sometimes all you have to do is put one thing out of place, and the party turns into like Sherlock Holmes trying to figure out why. and it's amazing.
It's the moment that you put any sort of descriptive focus on there. So, like, if it's at the end of a descriptive set, like block of text that you set up, they're like, that must be important. We have to take a look.
It's
Yep.
that last thing. That last thing is the focus. Why was that last?
Yep, exactly.
One other thought that I have in regards to if your players do something that you are not expecting, that I have used at least once before, that I think is very daunting to GMs, is just flat out telling your players like, so I totally didn't prepare for you to do this. I'm going to I'm going to need a moment, or if we're going to do this, let's call it for a night so I can prepare something. Because I think there's this kind of pressure that GMs and like puts on
Mhm.
themselves to be that always that person behind the curtain where you're like, I will never show you the mechanics. This is a real living world, and every door that you open has something interesting behind it. When in fact we're all, well, I'm sure most of us are human, and can't have everything prepared at any given time. So
Yep.
I think
Or
sometimes just telling your players, just I'm honestly not ready. You done stumped me. Did not expect that, after last week when you were all talking about going in that cave, that you would say, I bet that place is silly. Let's go somewhere else.
right? I was just gonna say, or you can just say something like, "Hey, I'm gonna need 5 minutes. Why don't we all take a break while I do some prep, or
Yeah.
do a quick bathroom break, and we'll all come back to this."
See,
Yeah. I've used that a lot of times.
this is one of the main reasons we've had, 2 podcasts that turned into 4 podcasts we've done with Brian, and
Yep.
why he's here again after being on the first one, because I was also going to close off with very similar comments about there's nothing wrong with being like, "Hey, I need 10 minutes. Take the bathroom
Yeah.
break," like Don said. Take like Brian said and be like, "Hey, we've been playing for 2 hours. I didn't plan for this. Let's stop here, pick it up next time."
Yeah.
It's okay to say, "Time out. I need a few minutes to do something." Maybe people need to get snacks.
Yeah.
That's a good break during any game is, "Hey, it's snack time. It's dinner time. Whatever. Go get some snacks, go get some drinks, and then you've got time to sit there and kind of figure out what you wanna
Hmm.
do." And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
good players will bring you snacks.
Yeah. So, how would DM stays? Yeah, added. How would you adjust if you're not ready and you're like already in like an hour into the session? Hmm.
I think that actually might be kind of a good segue, might be pushing a little bit here, into something else here. So the scheduling conflicts thing that we were going to run into, because I
Mm.
think some of Brian's ideas on scheduling conflicts might help with something like that question as well. So I will start first. That way, Brian has a few minutes to be like, "Wait, what can work there?"
Yeah, it's like I'm waiting to see the mental gymnastics on this one.
You're welcome. But, scheduling conflicts, I've heard the phrase, I think Stasia said this is too. I know Brian has the BBEG of any campaign is getting everybody together at the same time
Yeah.
Yep.
consistently.
Yep.
So what are some of the things you can do when one player cancels or half the group cancels, or it's just not a good night for some reason? Maybe you're an hour into the session and you're not prepared as a GM, or it's just not going well. Different things you can do. So one of the things I've kind of thought of recently is there's a lot of these indie RPGs out there that are
Yep.
very simple, and you can just
Yeah.
make something up on the spot because the rules are simple enough, and just let the players do what they do. Like, we just finished Brains 2 weeks of Brains and Brawn. You need some D10s and very simple character creation, that's it. Or before that, we did Roll for Shoes.
Yep.
You have 1 skill to start with that game, and you need D6s, and it's easy just to kinda go. There's a system that, we've used, well, we haven't used, but I've played in before, called The Witch is Dead, which only needs a D10 as well. So there's, jumping to a different game
Hmm.
sometimes is needed for all kinds of reasons: scheduling conflicts, people missing, you're not prepared, or
Burnout.
burnout,
Yeah.
or like something really serious happened in the session, and it's like, ooh, we need to step away from this.
Yep. Let's do something
Yeah.
silly like a Roll for Shoes game or Brains and Brawn or really any game that's just rules light that you can dive into and have some fun, just changing the whole mentality for a bit.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a good approach. If, like you said, like you get an hour into the game and your players throw like a complete curveball at you, where you're like, I 15 minutes is not going to get me prepped enough for that. It's one of those things where you say, like, listen, I am like, I want to do this, but I'm not going to be able to prep this in a bathroom break or, running out to get snacks break. Like, let's put a pin in it here. And I've got this wonderful binder of 1 page TTRPGs. Let's pick one. Like you
Yeah.
said, sometimes that's great because it can be a breath of fresh air.
Hmm.
I know I was playing through a game where I was a player, and we literally, I think we did get about an hour in, and the GM gets a call on his phone, and it's his wife. Puts the phone, hangs up the phone, and goes,
I
"I gotta
have to
go.
go. Yep.
I gotta go." He's like, "I gotta go, family stuff." And we're all like, "Yeah, yeah, that's fine." He just books it out the door. It's like, I'll let everybody know. I'm really, really sorry. And we're all just kind of sitting there and are like, well, what do we
What the
do?
hell do we do now?
Yeah, like everybody starts packing up, and I'm like, I pull out my laptop and I'm like, we're all going to be bears. We're doing honey heist because I
Heck
just
yeah.
happened to have it. And I was like, we're going to honey heist. And the setting is going to be the game that we were just playing. And we're just bears that are, moving tangentially to the group that is there. So we will cross over with them at some point in time. But, we're all going to be bears. And our goal is to steal honey from the town that we were just nearby.
That's
And, you
awesome.
know, it's and that's what's great for the 1 page. I do have a list, a virtual binder, if you will, of just short, quick, simple games. So like if if I get a last minute cancellation, I always tell my group, I'm like, listen, do you need me to cancel tonight entirely? Like, does everybody just need a night off, or were you all looking to get together, socialize, play a little game, throw some dice, act as somebody else? Because I know some of my players really busy lives. So, like, if a night like that where cancellation comes up, they would love to just step out, kind of take a breather for a bit. But I have other players that are like, I was kind of looking forward to tonight. Catching up with people, playing a little bit, and it's like, oh, okay, well, we're not going to continue our normal story, but
Hmm.
we can
Uh,
all play one of these games.
and
Exactly.
as a DM GM, if you're not prepared or you're just not in the right mindset or you're just like running low on spoons or whatever, it's okay to cancel a session. I did this yesterday. I
It
had a session
happens.
I had a session I was
Yeah.
supposed to run yesterday. I ended up with a 10-hour workday, and I'm just like, I'm not really prepared, and I'm not going to be able to run what I feel would be a good session with where my head was at.
Yep.
Now
Yeah.
we just all out canceled. We didn't do another thing in the interim, and that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
be honest with your players. They're not
Totally.
going to shun you or guilt
Mm.
you, and if they do, maybe you need different players.
You took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to add. Is that first off, your players are going to be understanding. Um, everybody life. We always say at our table, life happens.
Mhm.
Life is always going to happen. Sometimes it happens in a way that you can't get to the table, and that is entirely fine. Just let me know as soon as possible. If it's last minute, I totally understand. I've had that happen before. And, with what you said, if your table is not okay with life happening, then, you know,
I think that means that
maybe,
there needs to be a bigger discussion.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then like if you're not able to, like, it doesn't even have to be a TTRPG that takes its place. Maybe it's a board game night all of a sudden with who's there.
yeah.
Yep.
Maybe it's a poker night.
There's this
Or
great there's this great game called 5 Minute Dungeon. You should look it up
yes,
if you haven't.
yes, I 100% suggest that. There are a bunch of different versions too. like, well, maybe not a bunch of versions, but there's a couple different versions and expansions, and it is great and it is easy to learn, and you can go through an entire game in, less than half an hour.
Yep.
Sometimes it derails and ends before that because you don't win, but it's easy, it's simple, and it's fun, and it doesn't take a lot of brain power.
Oh yeah.
The other
I
thing.
keep
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I was gonna say on a virtual side, I keep meaning to pick up. I've been in a couple groups where we all have Tabletop Simulator, which if you know how to use Simulator, you can usually load up modules to do a variety of board games on.
Hmm.
Okay.
So that's always a standby for me. It's like, well, if we got Tabletop Simulator, we can play one of the numerous games you can run on it.
Heck yeah.
Then another thing you can do if you have people cancel is, or a heavy session or something or whatever, is you can do a session 02 or
Yep.
whatever it is as well.
Check
Like
in.
Yeah,
it's a good idea to especially for like a longer campaign or something. Check in with the players, see where everybody's at.
Yep.
Like, see if they've got any questions. Maybe they've got questions about something in the game. This is a good time for them to ask and get some more information that maybe that they would have, or you can give them some leads that they should follow in game.
Yeah. Also, I'd add
it's
in if it's been a longer game, also check in with the players and see if they have burnout going. Because if you notice that
yeah,
your attendance is starting to dwindle a little bit, it might be that they just need to change things up for a couple of weeks. There's nothing wrong with
yeah,
that.
Mhm.
yeah.
Just be
That's
like,
the game
hey,
I've been.
yeah. So go ahead, dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. No, I've been playing Curse of Strahd. It's gothic horror. It's
Hmm.
dreary. I love dreary. I love horror. I mean, you know, it's my bread and butter. My players know this. It's not all of my
Everyone's.
players' favorite thing in the world, and it can be draining for some people.
Hmm.
And like you said, acknowledge that that's the case and that burnout can happen. And sometimes, you know, step out, do something completely different for a little bit just to let everybody recharge a bit. But yeah, taking the time to like sit down and have a discussion with everybody live if possible is definitely one of the things that once I started doing was a noticeable improvement in my games overall, just because you're just getting that much more communication and that much back and forth, and you kind of start to understand. It's like you talk to your players, and they're like, "Well, like we have so many quests and side quests, we really don't know what's a priority anymore. We've got a quest log." A mile long. We don't really know what to do. And like every time we go somewhere, it feels like three more possible things pop up. It's like, oh, well,
Skyrim.
yeah,
Skyrim.
exactly. It becomes your Skyrim quest log where you're like, I don't know
I
what to
don't.
do. I don't talk to anybody.
I have no memory of this place.
Yeah, but like having your players out of character say like, well, this is what my character really wants to do, but I don't know if that's what everybody else wants to do, and just getting them to talk amongst
Mhm.
themselves and then talk with you and say like, these are our priorities. And you're like, okay, well, like definitely can make sure to, really give you more emphasis on certain things to kind of push you in the right direction and course correct you a bit. So
Hmm.
everybody's having fun and you can be good. You can be working towards a goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our friend George also put something in the chat that he did. I was actually a part of this too. Was we had people cancel like day of, and like one person no show, another person's like I can't today. Something came up, and so as he put in there, he just did kind of an AMA about the lore of the world.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, like you can just be like, all right, hey, players that are here, you know, what do you want to ask me about the world or about a quest line like we've been talking about? Just be like, what do you want to know right now? And it
Yeah.
may delve into something that's not related to the game at all, but whatever, but it's, something to fill that slot, take up that time and still engage with who's there.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, it allows you to inject content in that you
Mhm.
don't usually have time for during sessions. You'll sometimes you'll run into that where the players like at breakneck speed burn through an entire set of storylines without realizing that there's subtext inside that story that links to a larger story that they didn't even realize is going on. And then
Yeah.
You're kind of left hanging in the wind when you're like, oh yeah, these people show up, and they're like, who are they? Like, yeah, those bandits that you wiped out. These are their mother guild, you know.
Another thing too that can kind of help is the burnout, because this, one of the things that causes scheduling conflicts is burnout by
Yep.
players or the DM. If you've got people that are willing to run stuff in your party,
Hmm.
rotate games periodically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
go for
that's
it, Brian. Go for it. I heard the excitement. Go
I
for it.
yeah, I was gonna say that it serves so many things to do that. Like, first off, like you getting as a GM, you getting to be a player for a little bit can be a huge breath of fresh air because coming to game night, you're like, I just need to focus on my character. I'm
Yep.
not sitting here making maps, putting artwork up, making sure that my virtual tabletop's working. All of that. You get to show up, so it's relaxing. But then the other point is like I feel like my time spent as a player makes me a better GM because it helps me see the perspective of that side of the screen. And I know
Hmm.
we talked about it a little bit earlier, where you know your players don't know your plan,
Nope.
and like that's a great tool for the GM, but it can also be very much of a hindrance.
It's true.
It can cause what I call GM blindness, where you think something
Mhm.
is really obvious because you've spent the entire weekend building out this adventure, and you're like the MacGuffin is here, the MacGuffin is right on the statue. They're totally gonna get it, and the party goes in, and they're like, there must be a hidden door somewhere. Like, let's start knocking on all the walls. And you're like, but statue in the middle. And like, you get the debrief afterwards, and they're like, yeah, well, no, we didn't even think to talk about the statue. And when you're a forever GM, sometimes it can be hard to remember what it's like to not have all of the knowledge. They're
Oh,
like, come on, the statue's right there. Just look at it. Just interact with it. Like, oh, it's
I,
shiny.
Thon's dying right now.
I'm remembering our very first Marches game in person and how many party members I wiped out legitimately in one session because they didn't read the thing that says this will kill you, and they took it as a personal challenge instead of a warning. I'm like, no, seriously, it means it will kill you. I pull all the levers and they just pancake the entire room.
Yeah, we lost half the party.
And I'm standing there, I'm like, I telegraphed it like 6 times. But yeah, it just comes back. That's why I'm dying over here, because it comes back to that DM blindness.
Yeah. And it's what, like you said, it's one of those things. It can be so nice to just change things up for a little bit. And I've
Yeah.
played with newer people that are like, oh, I really want to get a chance to DM. And it's like, well, if you have something, like if you're ready to do something, granted, you need to know this is not replacing my game. You're
Yes.
you're jumping in for 2 sessions, maybe 3 sessions, and then I'm coming back. Um,
Exactly.
but sure, jump in, take a sit in that seat, sit behind the screen, and give
And
it a go.
and I will say, exposing your players or exposing your group to different game systems in those
Mhm,
burnout cycles will get their brains percolating on what they want to do in character later.
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up here so things can get going. Our next DGG Presents Random Encounters will be October 26th. Right now, we're shooting to do these the last Wednesday of every month. They may start coming out more often depending on scheduling and whatnot, but the other Wednesdays, we're still planning to stream indie games. Um, and
With an updated overlay for this one eventually. Sorry, been
yes,
busy.
that's all right.
We're just
Um,
in space.
Pay attention to the Twitter and the Twitch here for an update on what the game is we're doing the next 2 weeks. I have too many games in my head right now, and I don't want to tell the wrong one that this is happening, but I gotta
Yep.
check with the person that's running it, and then we gotta double check. We think we have in October, Michael's coming back with XD6, another one of his games by Luck Legends for a one-off
Nice.
in there. But um yeah, if you have stuff you'd like us to talk about in any of these, just shoot us a message and let us know. I'm not going to put Brian on the spot right now and say he's joining us again, but we definitely would like to have him back, and we'll find out and we'll let you know who's joining us for sure later on, because we don't want to monopolize him all the time, even though we have such a good time. But yeah, we've got podcasts coming out with Brian, so take a look at our at Anchor or Spotify for Damn Good Games for some of those with tips. And Brian, plug it up. Where are the socials?
So you can find me first and foremost on Twitter at bjarkthebard.com. That's Bjark with a J. I have an Instagram now. I have a specific Instagram just for Bjark the Bard. It has maybe 2 things on it because I'm learning Instagram and I don't really understand it yet. But I am getting there. I put up a reel and it looked okay. Um,
Then you're doing it
besides that,
right,
I
I
have
think.
yeah. Yeah, I just
Wow.
need to do it more often. But besides that, it's my website, bjarkthebard.com. The only big thing that I have working on right now is I am collaborating with some other wonderful TTRPG creators and preparing something super, super spooky for the end of October. It's going to be a collection of everything you need to run horror in 5th edition.
Ooh,
Cool. That
It's
sounds cool.
called Baba
interesting.
Lasaga's Nocturnes and Nightmares.
Yeah, I'll have to
All
check that
right.
out. Send me the stuff
Yeah.
when you're after you release. I'll definitely pick that up.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely. We are all abuzz. We are so excited in getting it kind of steadily approaching that release date. It's going to be really awesome.
That's cool.
So for us here at DGG, if you want to check out the previous random encounters or any of the indie games we have streamed actual live plays of, the ones that are no longer on Twitch, since unless you're a fancy partner, they get rid of your videos pretty quick. We put everything on our YouTube.
Yep. We're working towards affiliate, but it might be like next year, depending on how things go.
Yeah, we'll see. We've been growing. We appreciate everyone following us. Give us a subscription on YouTube as well.
Yep.
Check out we have a Ko-fi, whatever you want to call it. Same thing, Artificer, whatever it is. I don't really know. I've heard it both ways. But we've got some of our material that we've released previously when we had a Patreon, and other new stuff is going to be showing up on there. So support us over there if you like what we do. Feel free to join our Discord community if you've got a indie RPG that you've created or one you think would be awesome to spotlight. If it's somebody else's, let us know. We're compiling a list, and that is the goal. One of these random encounters or one of our off weeks, we're gonna go through probably and do a live review of the games we've played, and we're gonna give it. Is it a damn good game? Or does it need work?
Yep.
So we'll be having that coming around, and maybe we'll have a guest that will have watched some of ours or maybe played in some of them that can also chime in with their input. But yeah, that's just what our goal is. We want to get these indie games in the spotlight as much as we can and showcase how easy and how good some of these are. And it's not that hard to pick them up and learn them. And I'm one of those people that has the barrier to entry. It's like, I don't want to spend the energy to learn a new game.
Well, yeah, you don't want to work when you're having fun. Me, it's
Yeah.
all fun. Like, I am a systems addict, so we strike a good balance between the two, I think.
Yeah.
That's like, go for it, dude.
Oh, finish up. Go for it.
I was just gonna say that's like my Dire Straits game. It's a little crunchier than most indie RPGs, but it'll be good.
Yeah,
Someday.
and like doing these different indie games has introduced me to a bunch of new systems, and I'm realizing that it's not always as much work. And I think showing people it's not as much work, and showing them how to quick start a game is going to get them interested and more into it, and show more options out there, which have a lower cost to get involved as well.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode of Random Encounters. Brian, thanks again as always. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you want to
Always.
hear more Brian, you can view the previous Random Encounters, which wasn't
Mhm.
called Random Encounters yet because it was the first one. And also, like I said, we have podcasts where we talk about smoother combat and creating NPCs. The NPC ones aren't out yet,
No,
but
I'm working on them again. It's in the list. I
yeah,
promise. I
they're
promise,
coming.
guys.
They're coming, so stay tuned to either Anchor. We have all the socials pinned and our pin posts on Twitter, so you can follow us there, drop us a line, any of that. And we look forward to seeing all of you next time.
For sure. All right. Stay legendary, folks, and all that jazz. Whee!
That's a new additive. Where did that one come from?
I don't know. All right. See y'all later.